AI makes junior engineers stronger or weaker?
I think it makes the top, 10% of junior engineers exceptionally better. And I think it makes, the bottom 90% exceptionally worse. AI can't replace taste. It can come up with different variations and different iterations of architectures, UI designs, mid-tier designs, API designs. There always needs to be a human in the loop. Many employees are going to get replaced. I think that companies are just going to get smaller.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Alex.
And my name is OP.
Welcome to AI on Fire, the podcast where ideas sparks, code burns, and the future of AI takes shape through the real stories from the people behind it.
Every fire has three elements: heat, fuel, and oxygen. Control those, and you control the flame. That's how we think about AI too. Not something to contain, but something to shape.
Today's episode is a little bit different. We're talking to someone new to their career, an engineer shipping real work and helping teams adopt AI tools the right way.
Because AI is changing the starting line for software career, a software engineer can ship faster than ever before. But the big question is whether they are learning faster.
Our guest is Nabil Merali, a junior software developer at SAS, who's also leading initiatives around copilots and AI adoption. He has a master's degree in computer science and started his engineering career not so long ago, but he's already performing at a level that feels way beyond junior. Outside of work, he welds and cuts hair. So if AI takes over, he clearly has a solid plan B. Nabil, welcome to the show.
Really excited to be here. Let's get into it.
All right, Nabil, we're jumping into the fire drill right away. We have 10 questions, short answers only, and this will shape our future conversation. If you're ready, let's set the fire up. Ding, 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 ding.
Let's do it.
All right. Copilot, best thing for junior engineer or dangerous shortcut?
I think it's the absolute best thing for junior engineers. It's the ticket to getting to the top, in my opinion.
All right. What's one engineering skill AI cannot replace right now?
AI can't replace taste. It can come up with different variations and different iterations of architectures, UI designs, mid-tier designs, API designs. But the one thing it can't do better than humans is still tailor to a very, very specific use case. There always needs to be a human in the loop.
All right.
All right. So we mentioned when you are stuck, you are thinking AI first or AI last?
I think the first thing is AI last. I think if you can struggle through a problem first for about 10 to 15 minutes, think about it, analyze it, and then ask AI to actually help with your thought process. Giving it an existing thought process is the best way to leverage it to the fullest extent of its ability, in my opinion.
All right. Most common mistake juniors make with AI tools.
I think it's probably like the black box fallacy. So kind of assuming that what AI says is the ground truth and just taking it and running with it without doing proper validation, making sure to understand that AI responses are more of a suggestion rather than a correct solution all the time.
Don't trust it blindly.
No.
So in different companies, this percentage is different, but if AI writes half the code, who owns the bug?
Whoever's name is on the git commit message, in my opinion, it's still, engineers first. That's the main thing. At this particular stage, AI is a tool. I know some companies are already employing AI agents, but most enterprises still have, engineering teams and developers who work on their day-to-day applications, and whoever pushes code is the one responsible for it.
All right. Lesson is simple. Create a Copilot account, and that's it. Blame the Copilot, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Once a thing seniors should do when mentoring juniors in an AI world.
Yeah, so I think for seniors, the most effective way to kind of, mentor AI native juniors, which is what I hope most junior developers are in 2026, is simply to make sure that when asking questions, they're not, syntactic or potentially even logic questions, but more broader scoped like architectural questions. I think that the industry has shifted from being a leak code entry level space to being a system design entry level space. So I think that now system design is important across all levels. The premise that only, seniors and principal and staff level engineers should be doing system design, I think is a fallacy in the AI age. I think that, it's probably the most important thing right now is system design. So I think when seniors are mentoring juniors, the first and primary thing should be, how does this fit in the system? How are the design decisions that you've decided to go with alongside AI contributing to the broader system, and what can be the pros and cons of what comes after with this choice?
Long story short, you need to understand what you're building, right?
Correct.
And that's why you need to understand the systems and learn the system design.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next one is tricky one and spicy, but that's why we're here. Virginia Tech. What did school teach you really well, and what did it not teach at all?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say that school taught me how to be a computer programmer. It didn't teach me how to be a software engineer. And it also did not teach me how to deliver production software. I think that the idea that, AI is going to take over software engineering today, the people who are saying that don't have experience delivering enterprise grade production quality software, because everybody knows everything breaks left and right, whether it's written by AI or written by humans. So I think that the one thing you don't learn in school is how to troubleshoot those issues, and in many ways how to actually be a software engineer rather than just a computer scientist.
Okay.
All right. Best way to learn fast: build side projects or read production code.
Best way is definitely to build, 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 build. Do not just read code. You won't learn. The best way to do it is to build something from the ground up. Even if you're vibe coding, which I know most people are nowadays, start building from the ground up. That's the best way to learn how the system works, how the code works at a broader perspective, and even to understand the use case better and how we can actually solve someone's problem.
Yeah, unless you're a language model, right? Then just read. Please don't build
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
before you
yeah,
learn.
yeah. I don't think humans are tokens in, tokens out. I think that we need to actually build things and be hands on to actually retain the knowledge that we're trying to gain.
All right. So, from a commitment perspective, what makes PR good, even if AI helped to write it?
Yeah, it's a great question. At least in my eyes, I think that a good PR has an extreme amount of over communication. We talk a lot in the AI world about context windows, and I think in pull requests, not everybody on a team is going to have, all the context in the world on what the code is actually doing. So I think over communication in the description, in some cases, over communication in comments. Maybe simplifying things down such that somebody who's really young could understand it actually makes for a team environment and a PR environment in which code reviews can be really, really positive and good. Pushing out PRs without descriptions, without ticket context, documentation context, in my opinion, is the problem. But I think what makes a really, really good PR is a lot of over communication.
All right. The last question: long term, AI makes junior engineers stronger or weaker?
It's a great question. I think it makes the top, 10% of junior engineers exceptionally better. And I think it makes, the bottom 90% exceptionally worse. So I think we're going to get kind of, people talk nowadays about the K-shaped economy where, the top 10% carry all the spending in the whole economy. I think it's going to be like that with junior engineers. I think we're going to have, the top 10% excel and build incredible things with AI. And I think the people who aren't AI native enough are simply going to fall behind. And those people in the middle, I don't think there really will be a middle. I think you're either in that top percent or you go downwards and you're not AI native.
Makes sense. Makes sense. You need to stay on top of the technologies, right? Cool.
Correct.
The fire drill is over, so let's get to our main sections. The first question, let's start with your journey. How did you get into software engineering, and how did you end up becoming the AI copilot contributor at SAS?
Yeah, it's a great question. So going to college, I knew that, I love solving hard problems. As you guys both know, in software development, we solve some of the hardest problems that the world experiences from a digital perspective. Software has become the language that everyone speaks, and now that's changing. And you can build software with English, and that's kind of what AI and LLMs are really, really good at.
Another level of abstraction.
Yeah, yeah, a level of abstraction. Now it's no
Or
need for
distraction?
code, just communication becomes the most important thing. But I always loved solving really, really hard problems. So, I had a passion for math, and then, it became programming and logic. And I, really wanted to shape, impactful products. I was always interested in how, different UIs and different systems were built. Things like Spotify, Snapchat, like studying how these massive applications were built and scaled, and how so many people can use them. And many times rarely experience anything as the user that would be negative, meaning like it's hard to see bugs. I think that's what motivated me to really get into software. And then I started as an intern at SAS about 2 years ago. It's a AI software company, and they build analytics products and machines that, allow customers to really, really test the bounds of their data and use our software to provide insights on the different things they're working on. From there, I really became interested in how copilots and MCPs were going to impact the future. I think that in the next 2 to 3 years, these are the most important technologies, not just for engineers, but for any enterprise. So I became the co-pilot lead on the model management team, and worked alongside many SaaS engineers across different products, figuring out how we could, integrate co-pilots into our SaaS Viya platform, which is kind of the main platform that SaaS has all of its products in, and how, solve different kinds of problems, including things like how can we share context between different products. So having one co-pilot that can kind of be your buddy side by side as a user, where you're kind of going through the different products, and how we can make sure all that's streamlined and can actually be really, really helpful to the user. I found those to be extremely interesting problems, really wanted to work on them. And it's really, really cool to be a voice at a company trying to compete with the best in terms of artificial intelligence and co-pilots.
And interesting, like when did you first start using Copilot seriously for real work, not just experimenting? Is it like during SAS, working at SAS, or like previously?
Yeah, so I was actually in school. I remember using LLMs like for various, coding assignments, using LLMs to learn. I found that they were really effective at creating note cards during the first couple iterations of ChatGPT. When I would study for exams, instead of, manually creating the note cards, I would have ChatGPT do them for me. And that would save, hours on end. And that's honestly how I kind of learned the value of AI and how it can be really, really helpful from an education perspective. Years before LLMs were created, I feel like we had all the knowledge available to us on the internet, but because LLMs can take tailored prompts, I feel like it's allowed people to answer questions they didn't even know they had before. And that's kind of the use case in which I started using it, which was in college, which is a place for curiosity.
What is the most like serious use case you use, like from your perspective?
I think nowadays the most serious use case is software, because that's, what I do on a day-to-day basis. I think that it's gotten so good, especially with the new agentic features that integrate with IDEs, at taking some context, whether that's, an actual prompt or a Jira ticket or a Confluence page or whatever that might be, and actually it does a really, really good job at solving these problems even on the first and second go. I've noticed now with more of the miniature scale bugs that, it can handle it. It can solve most of those problems really. Sometimes I feel like my job is being more of a code reviewer than a software engineer sometimes when I'm solving some of these bugs, because AI is so great at coming up with some of these solutions really, really quickly.
All right, that's cool. So now let's get to something a little bit more hotter. So there is like hot topic. I think one of the hottest one, that AI will replace us all, but it will start with juniors, right? So what's your honest opinion on this, or take from the inside?
I think that, to be honest, I do think that artificial intelligence and machine learning has the potential to take over most junior jobs. I think from a broader perspective, the question is like, how are enterprises going to develop senior people? Because in order to be a senior, it implies that you were a junior at some point and had those kinds of experiences. I think that one way things are going to change is actually not necessarily that juniors are going to get replaced. I think that many employees are going to get replaced. I think that companies are just going to get smaller. So I think we're going to see a lot more, 1 to 2 people businesses, which we're already starting to see with agentic AI. So I think that the whole idea of corporate hierarchies might not exist in the near future. I think we might have more, partners and duos. And I think the way we think about enterprises is completely going to change. So I actually think in a weird way, it's almost like it's the wrong question, because I think there won't be juniors and seniors anymore. I think they'll just be agents and, 1 or 2 people who are solving, very, very niche and specific problems that we need solved.
So eventually we'll still lose our jobs.
Correct.
All
I was
right.
trying to think of a more optimistic way of putting it, but yeah.
What is your perspective on how AI help you right now as a entry level engineer at SAS? Do you use it to learn code base, for example, to understand what is going on over there as a new person come to the team and explore what is going on under the hood, or you write the code, write use cases, you test or commits, etc.
I think the most common thing I've used it for, at least in my last year being a developer, is actually writing tests. I think that it's really, really effective at getting a high volume of unit tests, integration tests. It's really, really good at creating use cases and test cases for different features and even broader code bases. So I tend to use that a lot. So it's a lot of prompting in terms of, can you test, this function or this API in as many ways as you possibly can and try breaking it with tests. And it's really, really good at that. So like, people talk about test-driven development, like AI test-driven development, I think is a really, really big thing. So that's kind of what I try to use it for. The other thing I use it for a lot is to provide context, kind of like you said. So it has the ability to take in more context per minute than I can as an engineer. So it can read an entire code base in the span of 5 to 10 minutes, whereas it would take me a couple days as a junior to actually really truly understand, like from a broader perspective, what's happening in different areas of the code base. So I do use it a lot to kind of give me context on a file or on a specific folder, and even in most cases, sometimes a very specific feature if that's kind of hooked in somehow and has different integration points. So I think like the biggest thing is getting context, writing tests, and then also weighing the pros and cons of things. So like the one thing I like to employ a lot is like the inversion method. So like, asking AI after like it's already created a solution for me or I've developed a solution, like how can this break? Like what are the different ways, in production or in the pipeline or, via unit testing that whatever solution I had can actually break. And I think that it's really, really good at identifying potential failures. And that's something I like to use it for.
Speaking about the failures, where does AI actually fail?
Yeah, so it's really, really bad when the context window is too large. So I think sometimes when, engineers were trying to move really, really quickly, and, I've seen things on not just at, you know, school and places I've worked at before, but I've seen, engineers pass in really, really big context windows and get really, really bad responses. So I think that there are strategies to employ to kind of fix those things. And even at SAS, we're trying to do those things by, reducing repository sizes, for example, is a big one. Splitting out services so that, agents can have smaller context windows to deal with. But it's really, really bad with larger context windows. And I think it's really, really bad at, basically anything that's UX or product related. So it's really, really good at giving suggestions as to, potential use cases, but it's really, really bad at that like human interaction of seeing like what, customers or engineers are actually, struggle with in using products. So I think that in a weird way, the role of the product manager, AI is really, really bad at. Like I think, the role of product managers are going to be extremely, extremely important in this next era of software.
Any manager, they will never replace us.
Do you face challenges you explain about context window, but like from a memory perspective, or context window, but like from other perspective, your code base is so huge that context window actually is very small and it cannot absorb the whole logic and of the code and can provide you limited or false information or anything like that? Or you work mostly with some local pieces and that's why you was talking about
Yeah. I mean, I'm
small.
mostly like in our situations, mostly like we're working with smaller context windows because the code bases aren't extremely large. That's just something I've noticed with the larger code bases. I have noticed that hallucinations are a lot more common when the code bases are a lot bigger for obvious reasons because the AI is trying to swallow a lot more context at once. But I think that I've seen using specific models. I was attempting to use Gemini, for example, to kind of create like a environment playpen for scripts that can create these. In our product, we have these like publishing destinations for different models. And it was like 1 to 2 prompts of different bash code, and Gemini was starting to hallucinate.
Hmm.
And sometimes I think that happens. It's also very language dependent. Like I've noticed whenever I'm asking questions about Python, it almost never like there's never really any problems from a hallucination perspective. But anything, C or Linux or Bash related seems to be, a little bit more problematic.
Don't
And I
even
can't
mention
tell.
Go, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Going
or
is
Go. Yeah, so I think it's also interesting. Like I think, LLMs are getting really, really good at very specific languages and maybe not so great at others. And I can't tell if that's just because of
Hmm.
language utilization or, how often people are prompting, but something to think about.
I think it's
Interesting.
all
How
about
do
the
you
examples,
personally
right?
verify, output that you get from AI?
Yeah, so I have like a very like I guess concrete like thought process in my head for like verifying output, which is like when I evaluate an answer, is it something that in my brain has, a greater than 6 out of 10 potential for actually being the right solution? And like that scale from 0 to 10 means like in terms of like my own confidence that like something will or will not work. Um, and the best way to do that is by breaking it. So by actually testing it. So I think one of the things we can do is add more validation. So more like below the line testing. So things
Mhm.
like testing in local environments become way more important. Running a lot of tests locally before, pushing to Git is extremely important. At SAS, we leverage, Kubernetes deployments. So, there's various ways to do testing, like doing a simple pod swap and testing functionality and running unit tests against development clusters and things like that. So actually, taking AI solution and testing it before it gets in production is probably the first and best way that any engineer can, and it's what I employ on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. So the follow-up question I have, we have junior people like you, right, who kind of AI native, right? You said that
Yep.
you started to use AI in college, and we have
Yeah.
old farts like us who just started to use AI a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, but we're kind of seniors or managers and whatsoever, right? So how should juniors actually build trust with senior engineers or managers when AI is involved in the work?
Yeah, so I think the best way to actually do it is like I said, like over communication, I think is the most important thing. Like if you're, a junior and you're building something and you're pushing code and you're not explaining what the code is actually doing and you don't have a deep understanding of what's happening under the hood, then it's really, really hard to gain the respect of people with a lot of experience and people you report to. The ironic thing is like if you want to understand the code more, you can actually use AI to understand its own solution by like asking follow-up questions such as like, why did you make that design decision? Like, why are we, writing methods? Why is the solution you suggested not modular? Things like that. And, when seniors ask questions on pull requests or managers ask questions in requirement meetings, if you have that context and you've brought forth solutions that you've questioned yourself, I think it's still pretty easy to, gain the respect of managers and seniors because what they're looking for is does this person actually understand what they're putting out there and are they aware of the pros and cons of whatever solution that they're putting forward for whatever product they're working on.
Yeah, just be honest, right? I used the AI, it failed, so I'll learn based on this.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And it's interesting. So current engineers who has, I don't know, 10, 20 years of experience in engineering, so they know, like they lived through multiple layers of abstraction, like different languages, and they know like how everything is working under the hood.
Yeah.
New AI native engineers, they may not see as deep as current experienced people, current experienced engineers, but maybe they don't. So interesting your perspective. Do current generation of AI native engineers, do they need to know how everything is working under the hood, or like new era might be not need such kind of knowledge?
Yeah, it's actually a really good point. I think about this a lot. Like kind of what you said, like, is that, deep knowledge of how the system works even going to be relevant if that part of the job gets completely abstracted away and, AI and agents are so good that, we don't need quote unquote the senior expertise that most engineers have. I think that might be true. I don't think that that's in the near term. Like I don't think that that's in the next 3 to 5 years. Beyond that this could potentially change. I think now with LLMs and agents, I think that it's still extremely important because really what they're doing is providing, potentially really, really good suggestions. But nobody, at least I don't know of a company in which, you know, AI only is doing code reviews. At most big companies, it seems like, most humans are still in the loop. And I think there's a very, very good reason for that, which is, AI right now is it's an enhancement to engineers rather than, actually being, taking over the role of engineers themselves. So I think that's a good point. Honestly, I think in 10 to 15 years, I'm not sure. Being an AI native engineer, sometimes I'm able to, as hard as it is to admit this, provide solutions or fix things without, potentially really understanding why under the hood that something's really, really working. And AI has a better understanding than somebody who's more junior, even somebody who is more AI native at, how the full system works. So that is really, really something to think about. And honestly, I'm not sure what it looks like 5 to 10 years from now.
All right.
Yeah.
That's
We'll live
true.
together and figure out.
Yeah, yeah,
Fingers
yeah.
We'll
crossed.
agree.
Fingers
Buy some
crossed.
ammo, as I said, right?
Yeah,
Build a generator.
yeah.
We'll see. All right. Speaking about things to do outside of work, I know that you're in welding and barbering. How did that start?
Yeah, so I actually worked at my freshman year of college. I worked at a rock quarry as an intern. So at Virginia Tech, we have a general engineering program. So I wasn't actually a computer science major at that point. I just kind of had general engineering knowledge. So I took an internship in the mining field. And at on a rock quarry, there's a lot of conveyor belts and there's a lot of metal shards and pieces everywhere and cuts of metal that people use for various things. So one of the things they taught us how to do was stick weld. So that was a very, very, hands-on engineering job. So I kind of learned how to, weld different pieces of metal together that could be used for different parts of conveyor belts, that could be used to, support and build little structures that could hold different sizes of rocks because they were mining different rock sizes, 8s, 16s, if you're familiar with the mining industry. That was kind of how I got into welding, and then barbering. It's just kind of the convenience thing. My hair grows really, really fast, so I didn't want to have to go into a barber shop every week. So I just hopped on YouTube, and I actually used AI, believe it or not, to actually help me like learn how to like do different haircuts. So things like, what are the steps to accomplish a medium skin fade? Like this is the clipper, and like these are the different guards that I have. Like what's the most efficient and effective way for me to get a fade done in under an hour? And I would actually use LLMs for that purpose. Interesting use case, but yeah, like that's how I got into barbering. Eventually got some clients, and now, I have people who come, in and out. I just cut hair here at my house, and people come and we have a conversation and cut their hair, and yeah.
The first AI barber or
First,
LLM inspired
barber.
haircut.
Yeah, LLM inspired haircut. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's how the future might look like. Like you have your engineering stuff, and you have plan B just in case you
Yeah,
will be very successful at engineering and
yeah,
create something that will replace you.
yeah,
So
definitely.
interesting, like from a skill perspective, skills from different areas. Do they help you, or how did they help you with approach in software engineering?
Yeah, so I think like from a barbering perspective, like I think the one thing I learned is like when somebody sits in your chair, like in many ways you have, one opportunity to get the quality right, right? Like there are times where you cut someone's hair and you can't go backwards. So, I tried to, view software development the same way. Alex is obviously the manager of the model manager team, and we are constantly pushing patches and pushing new features, and sometimes, the quality perspective and the taking the time to improve, the process of, not just the haircut, but, software development end to end is kind of something I think about a lot because, in many ways we want to get the quality right. You know, if we push code out and there's a breaking change that, gets in prod and a customer has that in their environment, and there's, a lot of data loss or, a critical feature breaks, then,
We never do this.
yep, we never do it. We don't want to lose revenue. So, it's something, Alex preaches as a manager. It's something, senior engineers at SaaS try to preach all the time. We want to get it right and we want the quality to be right. And I think that, barbering and doing something, like I said, where, the customer satisfaction is really important is something that I've tried to take into software development and make sure, when I'm pushing code that I'm very, very sure that it's working. And I think that that's something most juniors need to think about. if you want to do well is, when you push code, be very, very careful about what's being affected and how it's impacting the overall system.
On the
So
other hand, you can roll the code back, but you cannot roll the haircut back, right?
yeah, yeah,
The hair will grow back. That will be different hair. You cannot put version control on your head.
yeah. There is no get pulled, get rebased, get reset hard. There's no resetting commits at all. So yeah, I learned the seriousness and importance of kind of customer satisfaction and obviously building that hands-on relationship. And then I think from welding, I learned the attention to detail. Like I think that detail is extremely important in anything in life. I think that detail is really, really important. And even though, like, we have all these LLMs now and they're really, really good at being the generalist, I think another thing I've learned is like it's really, really important to be really, really good at a very specific subject area. So, you can use LLMs and they can be generalists, but, we want to be specialists in some way, shape, or form. Now, I think, for most engineers, if you're kind of a generalist, that was kind of something that was viewed as like, the greatest thing in companies because, that person could be multidimensional and multifaceted. But now, we have LLMs and agents that can kind of be generalists, right? Like I can ask, Gemini or ChatGPT to write that boilerplate code. If it's SQL, which I'm not very good at, but it understands it, it can do it better than me really, really quickly. So it's really, really important to get really, really good at a particular subject area. And I learned that a lot from welding because there's a lot of attention to detail required.
And based on that, before we start into wrapping up and set the fire down, just curious from your perspective. So currently, we do have a huge specialization where, like, from backend, front end, or like different languages, etc. With the AI native AI engineers, how do you see this? Will we still maintain such kind of separation in different roles or specialization, or it will be blended and combined in some shape or form?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's most likely going to be, blended and combined. I think that at this point, like various different roles are kind of skewed because like we have now a generalist that can handle practically any task that we give it, ranging from solving math problems to writing software to, writing a script for, a song. It can literally do practically anything. So I think that, roles are going to be very vague. And I think that these kind of rigid titles that we have now, like in enterprises, are probably going to change, and it's going to be really, really interesting. I think that we have a very kind of there's similarities among like hierarchies and like how we organize ourselves, like not just as companies but as a society. And I think that those things are really, really going to change with AI because now we have something with greater than human intelligence that isn't actually a human. So that changes a lot.
On this note, I think overall the classical feature development will go away, right? Because we'll
Yep.
not have to write features anymore. We'll just
Yeah.
write the prompts, and then we'll have tools that will be actually creating features. So I think, we'll become the guardrails engineers because you need
Yeah.
to write a lot of guardrails to make sure that we're not implementing like breaking features or something like this, or AI implementing the breaking features.
And another layer. So currently, we do have product manager and engineering. And will PMs become engineers, or engineers will become PM, or
I
we
think
will meet on the middle?
if I'm being honest, I think we'll meet somewhere in the middle, but I think definitely leaning more towards the PM side. Like I think that there's like the concept nowadays of like forward deployed software engineers. I think that that's like going to be across the board. I think, we're just going to have people who are like just very customer focused, very, very, how can the feature fit the use case? And I think we're going to have middlemen. And I don't think, like Alex said, I think that, feature development and kind of, being in the weeds and coding as these agents and LLMs get better, I think that is going to diminish over time. And I think that, those people skills and that understanding of product is going to become a lot more important.
You're actually both wrong. We'll become welders
And
and
barbers.
barbers, right? So that's the future.
Yep. Yep.
So
Indeed.
speaking about the future, so what do you think is one thing that people are getting totally wrong about AI?
I think that the one thing they are getting totally wrong is that humans won't have meaning after a lot of jobs get replaced and a lot of job displacement happens. I think that, that's how societies evolve. I think that, humans are going to find other, more productive things to do. I think that, working kind of the corporate lifestyle and solving like the regular types of problems, maybe in the early 2000s that people have gotten accustomed to, that's going to change. I don't know how that's going to change, but I think it obviously will. And I think that, the way humans live their day-to-day lives is really, really going to change. But I think in more of a positive way than a negative way. I see a lot of, artificial intelligence is going to ruin society because people won't have meaning anymore and they won't have jobs. And I think that this is true, but I think as humans, we're resilient and, we have the ability to iterate, as we've seen many times after, world wars and the industrial revolution and all kinds of different things. And we've always had the ability to iterate. So I think AI is going to take us to a new world in which humans can focus on things that make them even happier and help them find even more meaning.
One piece of advice for your next generation and currently thinking where to go, like
Yeah, I think try to figure out what you're good at, optimize for what you're really, really good at, maybe not what you're most passionate about. I think that, happiness and enjoyment in doing something comes from mastery. So I think that if, in a weird way, if you're willing to suck at something for a little bit and longer than most people, you'll eventually become good at it. And then when people really love doing things that they're really, really good at. So I'd say find that out. The best way that I found doing that is, over index on travel as a young person. Just travel the world, travel to different cities. You'll find inspiration and insight and you'll figure out what you're really, really good at. Talk to as many people as you can, network. And of course, just try your best in whatever a human endeavor that you're engaging in. And you will eventually find something that you are really passionate about and something that can actually help you contribute to society in an effective way and compete with everyone.
And just in case, enroll into welding or barber school.
Yeah.
You
And watch
know how to set the fire up and set the fire down.
and watch the AI on Fire podcast.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's absolutely
it's
the killing
funny.
advice.
Yep.
All right, I think it's time to set the fire down. Nabil, thanks for jumping in with us. Any final thoughts for our listeners?
This was a fantastic experience. I've enjoyed all the episodes. I'll continue to watch it. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, this was absolutely great. And don't be afraid of AI, guys. It's really going to help us in the future. And I think that it's probably the most revolutionary technology we've had in all of our lifetimes for sure.
After
So
electricity.
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you so much. That's it for today's week. Yeah, on fire.
All right, remember, tools change fast, but fundamentals still win. See you next time.
Bye everyone.